Hello and welcome to Product Popcorn, the podcast that explores topics related to product management. Most of the time. We talk with product managers and also designers and engineers that work on product teams, and only sometimes discuss the possibility of artificial intelligence taking over the world. You can always read more at productpopcorn.com. Today on the podcast, my guest is Brian Rhea. I recently saw Brian speak at a product event, and he did a presentation on jobs to be done theory, and I definitely wanted to share it with my podcast listeners. I had never heard of jobs to be done before seeing Brian's presentation, and now I am absolutely obsessed. It's changed the way I think about my product and its features. Use this theory when you're scoping out requirements, thinking about your product's competitors, and especially working with your UX team. When I originally saw Brian present on jobs to be done at a product event, he talked about conducting jobs to be done customer interviews, demonstrating how to elicit the job to be done from the customer. Brian has a very short and free email course about jobs to be done, and the fourth and final email focuses on how to conduct these types of customer interviews. If you're keen on what you hear today on the podcast and want to delve deeper, I definitely recommend signing up for the jobs to be done emails on his website. I'll put a link in the show notes. Here we go. Hey everybody, welcome to Product Popcorn. I'm Kimberly and I'm a product manager.
I'm Adam and I organize trapeze artists I didn't plan this out ahead of time.
Yeah, clearly.
I'm a front-end developer.
You are? Good. Hey, you've never actually said that before. In the new year, maybe your resolution should be to think of better jobs to be, better fake jobs.
I'll have a huge list and I'll just
rattle them off.
Yeah.
We should have a whiteboard in here where you put down ideas as you think of them.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we have Brian Rhea on the podcast today, and he is going to talk about jobs to be done. I'm super pumped. I saw him talk about this at Rocky Mountain Product Camp, and it was great. It's kind of a big topic in product management right now, so you should all really listen and take this one to heart. We are going to intro Brian right off the bat, and first off, Brian's from Texas. Alert. Texas alert. I am outnumbered.
Howdy, y'all.
Oh. Sounds like my dad.
I can do a pretty good Texas accent.
Oh my God.
I feel like if you're from Texas, it just comes naturally.
No, we moved out here 5 years ago, and I've tried to drop it, but pull it in from time to time.
Yeah, I find that I generally don't have an accent, but there are certain words that would just come out, and I will be like, wow, I got, that's
like fixin' to?
Yeah, except
Fixing
I'll go straight.
That's great.
I'll go straight from no accent to huge accent, and then right back out, and I'll be like, I blacked out. I don't know what happened.
Is it when you drink it comes out?
No, maybe a little bit more on that, but I think it just happens. It's
just at random?
Yeah.
Or when you're around other people with that accent. I tend to mimic people's accents, which is probably not good, but...
Yeah, that's what I worry about
when
I visit my family. I'm just like, am I going to take this with me
back
to Colorado?
I'm from Ohio. We have no accent. There's no, it's the most neutral.
Hello, I'm from Ohio.
Pretty much.
Everyone talks like it in a really low monotone.
Okay, speaking of what you just did,
yes.
I was screaming at Alexa yesterday as I answered the door to somebody that I had never met before, so that was weird because they thought probably I was a complete psychopath. But Brian was saying you got the Google one, right?
Yes, just got the Google Mini. Loving it.
What do you love about it? Tell me.
So you can ask it just about anything. We have one in the kitchen, and we'll be talking to the kids, and we'll just be having some conversation. One of us will say a word. It's like, hey, what's that mean? And my wife and I, we may not be able to come up with a good definition. You're just like, hey Google, define compose. And it just rattles it off for you. I've got Spotify hooked up to it, and so you can it recognizes your voice.
Oh wow!
So I can say, "Hey Google, play Winter Pop 2018," and it'll play my playlist, and then my wife can say, "Hey Google, play whatever," and it'll play from her Spotify account.
Well, Death Metal 2016.
Yes, that's I listen to Taylor Swift, and she listens to Pantera.
Well, that's a step up from Alexa, which I swear is QA'd only by men, because it will not understand a single freaking thing that I say, but my husband will come along and be like, oh, Alexa, what you do? And she's like, anything you want.
But that's because Bill has a radio voice. He's like, hey, Alexa.
My wife will say please and thank you
do that too.
to Google. And I'm just like, I don't thank the microwave.
Google.
Done.
That's because Google will remember in the future. She's planning ahead. She's like, when it happens, not if,
right,
when.
right.
They'll be like, wow, that's a really polite human.
Yeah.
We're going to let her make it.
Eventually, you're going to ask Google for something, and it's going to be like, Brian, give me your wife. She's nice to me. I mean, how do you deal with that with the kids, too? Do the kids have to say please and thank you to Google?
We should enforce that, actually.
Because, what's the line between, talking to a person on the phone and talking to Google, who I realize is not a real human?
Well, I would start with heartbeat. That's my defense. But I read this article about it, and it was saying, it's become such an integrated part of your day.
Yeah.
You're asking it for things that becomes a habit to just demand something and expect a response.
Totally.
I don't know. I should say please and thank you, because I completely believe that Google Mini is going to eventually be our overlord.
Yeah.
So I should be sowing some seeds of
do we think that
of
might be
goodwill.
better? I think about that a lot. I'm like, maybe if the machines take over, maybe it'll be fine, maybe. I don't know. I'm coming around.
Well, if you
something I think about a lot.
If you follow on your current path of talking to Alexa with 12 F-bombs.
I really do.
Gonna be a net negative.
I swear at Alexa a lot. Maybe more than I talk to her like a normal person, because I just am always angry at her. She really makes me furious. She doesn't do anything that I want. She does not solve my problems. Anyway, so Brian, you have a development background.
Yes.
And now you freelance.
Yes.
Okay. And you do product strategy stuff too, obviously.
Yeah, so the career trajectory has been odd and winding, because even before front-end development, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of my LinkedIn profile, I was an art teacher.
Oh.
For 5 years. But I got into the internet in 1994, 95, because my dad owned the ISP in our small town, Acronomicon ISP.
What is it?
Iguana service provider.
Nearly.
You've been doing a lot of iguanas.
It's we have so many eyes, and iguana's a solid I word.
It is.
Yes. So internet service provider. Mm-hmm. And so I was 14 or 15. He was like, hey, Brian, it's 1995. He's like, I think the internet's going to be big. You should learn how to build websites for it. And I was like, cool, let's do it. So that's how I got my start. And so he would go around selling websites to the businesses in town, and then bring them home to his 15-year-old kid.
People are like, what's a website?
Yeah, more like, what's a website?
What's that there web thing you're saying
You
about?
might still be able to do that in Texas.
You still, well,
it still happens.
Good. Yeah, it does. But so that's how I got my start. Then went to college, got into art education, but got back into the internet after a bit of a winding road. And so, my background was as, HTML, CSS, and JS, and I was freelancing in the Dallas area. Mm-hmm. And we moved out here to Boulder, where I joined a startup. And it was a
Which
great
startup?
Macavo.
Oh.
It was a Techstars company, Foundry-backed. And so I joined that team, amazing team, in 2012. And through that experience is when I went from front-end development to UX, and then into a product strategy role.
Oh, cool.
And that's where, and we'll talk about jobs today, but that's where I first started learning about jobs to be done, just kind of fell in love with the strategy side of things.
Yeah.
But I just also cannot give up the maker aspect of it. And so that's why this position now, where I do product strategy consulting, and also with my business partner Richard, build the prototype, build the MVP.
So you do prototyping.
Yes.
Very neat.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, that's why I need to learn to code.
You ought to.
2018.
Mine is just ridiculous jobs. That's my 2018 list.
Oh yeah, that's your only.
Yours,
That's
yours
your
is
only
something
New Year's resolution.
Yours is productive. Mine is to come up with an enormous list of ridiculous jobs.
But our listeners will appreciate it so much.
Yeah.
I just like honestly sometimes I just straight up forget that I do that thing where I just say like I ridiculous. I'm like shit.
One day you're gonna throw me off, and you're just gonna be like, "I'm Adam, and I'm a front-end developer." I'll be like, "Oh crap! Like, I don't know how to start the podcast
What
now.
about the
That's
bit?"
a weird thing."
I'm just gonna dead eye you, look you right in the eyes, and say it too.
All right, we're gonna do a quick warm-up game, and then we're gonna do a quick Acronomicon, and then we're gonna get into it.
I so wanted to say the Acronomicon thing there, but it's not time for Acronomicon.
It's not. Save it.
I hear it and I just have to say it.
I know. I like that. It's
Okay.
You're very committed.
Thank you.
All right. So warm-up game is this or that. I was gonna do the cool or bull, but I thought if your kids listen to this, we don't want any cussing. So we're gonna go
Cool stuff or bull stuff.
we're gonna go this or that. All right. I haven't written these down, so I'm just going off the cuff.
Okay.
All right. Ice cream or frozen yogurt?
Ice cream.
Good call. Good one. We do not like frozen yogurt on this podcast. We don't know what it is.
It's like regular yogurt but colder.
And not as good as ice cream.
Yeah, it's like ice cream, but not as good.
It's like, why? Anyway, okay. If you have ice cream, what kind of sauce do you put on it? Chocolate or caramel?
Oh, chocolate.
Yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good call.
Yeah.
Although there's no real wrong answer on that one. No
Trying
real
to think of the
wrong
last
answer.
time I put caramel on ice cream.
It's pretty
Thank you.
tasty. I mean, as my husband told me today when I was buying Christmas presents for his family. Oh, I mean, it's 2018. What? I was just really late on buying Christmas presents for his family. And I was like, does your mom like caramels? And he's like, Kim, everybody loves caramels. I'm like, you're right. Everybody does. Who doesn't like a good
caramels?
caramel? Yeah, caramels. Yeah. Yes, that thing.
I feel like putting I'm like so torn on how to say this. I feel like putting caramel on your ice cream. I gotta go be true to myself, you know. I don't know what I say. I feel like I mix it up. Sometimes I say caramel.
Now you're like conscious of it. So I'm
Yeah,
just gonna
I
ask you
can't-
about it when you're not expecting it. All right, next. Dogs or cats?
Dogs. I'm
Ugh.
allergic to cats.
Thank God.
Yeah.
Thank God. Sorry, cat people.
Sorry.
I mean, cats
But
are
you're
fine.
terrible.
I like looking at the memes, but I don't like the actual animals up in my grind.
But they're cute.
They are cute. Tesla Model S or Model X?
S.
Ooh,
S, yeah.
interesting Colorado choice. All right. Again, no wrong answer there. Teslas are all awesome. All right, last one. Pandas or red pandas?
I gotta go red panda.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that
Adorable.
you've listened to the podcast, so you know the answer to that question.
Yes.
That's not going to get you yelled at, but I appreciate the support.
He's just saying that because he's hungry.
I'm going to just breeze right through that. Just going on, moving on. All right.
Do we need to go in? We don't need to go into that?
Nope,
Okay.
we don't need to go into detail. All right, Adam, now it's your favorite part. We're going to do Acronomicon.
Acronomicon.
Excellent.
I normally do the hand thing. What am I doing? I had a scotch in my hand, so
Your
that's
hands
okay.
are full of whiskey. It's fine.
Is that a T-Rex sound, by the way?
No, it's not. It's not any sound. It's. Oh wait, you mean the elephant?
Is it an elephant?
It's an elephant. Yeah, that's an elephant.
Okay.
I think we should mix it up with like a bald eagle. Like a, that's a terrible bald eagle.
I'm
I
gonna
can't-
be on
The Colbert Falcon.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm gonna be on the internet for like 3 hours after we record this, looking for a falcon sound now.
It sounds so good.
Well, I've incorporated the meow. And I incorporated recently a dog bark. You haven't heard it yet.
I bet it's pretty rough.
Yeah. It's not great.
That pun just slipped right over you.
Did. It totally did.
It was so smooth, you didn't even catch it.
It was an excellent pun. I told you to be ready with the puns today.
Okay, I got it.
You got it. It's anyway, our Acronomicon is JTBD.
Which, of course, stands for just the biggest detergent bottle. I mean, the B is like... I bet you thought I was going to say... Didn't you?
We have to edit that out now.
My kids are listening.
Your mom is listening, and his kids are listening.
No, I said...
It is jobs to be done. Surprisingly, the subject of today's podcast. But anyway, very good. And we'll obviously go into a greater definition of that. But before we go into jobs to be done, there was something that you said at Rocky Mountain Product Camp that I thought was really interesting, and I wanted some feedback on it. Because we actually had a listener question, too, that was very similar to this, which is, how do you prioritize? Like, you said that product teams typically need to build much less than they think.
Right, yeah.
So, and I think that when you work like on an enterprise products like I have for the past few years, you have like higher ups saying, this is your MVP, when MVP should really be cut in half or maybe further than half. So like, how do you accomplish that? How do you whittle it down?
Yeah, so, and it'll definitely be related to what we talk about later, but if the person assigning you that scope or saying, here is the MVP, if they have a true appreciation for what MVP means, which is to maximize learning while you minimize investment and minimize risk, then what you should be able to do from that is to determine what is the core problem that we're attempting to solve here, and what is the cheapest and fastest way that we can get to that. And so often, at least I see, the quote MVP is like the first tolerable version that the stakeholder can allow themselves to release. And so if what you can do, if what you can get to is what is the core journey, like what is the primary outcome that we're going to get from this. Now, okay, let's agree upon that. Look at all of this other scope that you have defined, and see if we can determine what is not actually required.
Would you say that there needs to be a certain amount of shame about your product? Like you should be like a little bit ashamed of it because it is so minimal. Like,
we talked about a few episodes ago how like you should be ashamed of the first version of your product or you've launched too late.
Yeah, totally. No, and like they made a joke about it on Silicon Valley, but that it is so.
What you're talking about. Exactly.
Yeah, I quoted Silicon Valley who was quoting
the LinkedIn CEO, I think, or something. Yes. Who originated it, maybe.
Yeah.
But no, you should. Like there's a little bit where you might kind of be embarrassed because you know. It's not finished.
Yeah.
This thing that we're releasing, this is not our grand vision. But that's always true, though.
Yeah.
Like you could.
It's never done.
It's never done.
Yeah.
Software is never finished. You could spend a year building the perfect cathedral product, release it, and what are you going to do? You're going to get customer requests. You're going to start getting feedback, and you're going to change it. And so...
And you're going to be like, this is garbage now.
You're going to be humiliated. You're going to be embarrassed. Twitter's going to hate you. All those things are going to be true anyway, so you might as well get to release faster.
Things become outdated so quickly, too, is what I don't think that people understand. And, like, just competition catches up and just, software does become garbage in a few years, right? Unless you're like continually improving upon it because
you should be. There's a great chapter in Cindy Alvarez's book, Lean Customer Development, where she outlines I think like 5 or 6 different types of MVP. Like the pre-order MVP, where you're just like putting up a fake thing. The Wizard of Oz, where it looks automated, but there's like hamsters running around in the background and keeping everything going. But one of them that she talks about is the single use case MVP. And from what I know about enterprise, I've never worked in a large enterprise organization. I don't think I could. I would not be employable in that situation. But that style of approach where you're like, as the product manager, you're advocating for the customer's outcome. You're saying, this is the thing that we think is going to matter the most. This is what's going to have the biggest impact for them and therefore our business. So can we refine it down to this single use case, nail it, and then go from there?
There you have it. That's how you get your MVP.
When are we
Good luck.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into jobs to be done. So do you want to start with the drill quote? I think it's later. We're going to wait.
Okay.
We're just going to wait for one
It's
question.
good. I love it. It's
I know,
funny
it is.
is when you start talking, seriously, I can't tell if you're setting up or if you're asking a serious question.
I gotta mix it. I have to mix it up and keep people on their toes. If they know what I'm gonna do, then I've failed.
All right, so first off, you said that there's a little bit of ridiculousness around jobs to be done and like how it started. So we can start out with that.
Yeah.
Then we'll get to the drill.
Totally.
I promise, Adam.
Okay.
Yay.
Okay. So if people are learning about jobs to be done for the first time right now, or they're kind of hearing it in the ether and now they're kind of exploring, what I can almost guarantee is that you're going to start following a couple of people on Twitter because they're the big guys, they're the big names, and then you're going to start seeing this really weird tension and rivalry, which is bizarre. So the origin story that I will tell about jobs is how I heard about it, which is Jason Fried and Ryan Singer at Basecamp kind of started talking about how they were using jobs to be done on their product. Being total Basecamp fanboy, I started looking up everything I could about it and found this YouTube video of Clayton Christensen, author of The Innovator's Dilemma.
Yep.
And so he shares this story that he and his a couple of consulting partners, they went to a fast food joint to help them improve their sales of milkshakes. And so
Shouldn't be hard.
It should not be hard. And they'd done all the market research, focus groups, and everything, and nothing was working. So they brought in Clayton Christensen and his guys, and they sat in the fast food restaurant for like 12 hours. And as people were walking out of the restaurant with actual milkshakes in their hands, they would stop them and say, "Pardon me, what job did you hire that milkshake to do?"
People were real confused.
And people were like, get away from me.
It didn't help that they were dressed like homeless people.
More likely they probably said something like, "Why did you buy that milkshake just now?" And the pattern that they observed was that in the morning, people were hiring a milkshake to keep them occupied on their long, boring commute.
Interesting.
And so,
okay.
because a milkshake, it fits in your hand, it fits in the cup holder, it's thick, it takes forever to drink, it gets your stomach full, so you don't have mid-morning like stomach grumbles, compared to a donut, which is messy, gets all over your hands, compared to a banana
or frozen yogurt, which nobody likes.
Nobody likes it.
Yeah.
Or a banana, which is clean, but it's over in like 6 bites.
Yeah.
So the milkshake just gets that job done perfectly. And so it was through that story that I started to think through the framework of hiring a product to do a job in the way that a company starts to feel the pain of, we need another designer, we need another PM, we need a dev.
Yeah.
And so they put out a job posting when they feel that pain as a person in your everyday life. When you're not making progress in an area, you post a job to be done.
That's a great analogy. And like I hired Alexa to play the correct playlist for me, except she doesn't listen to me. So I think I should fire her and find somebody else to do that job because it still needs to be done.
I think what happens is that when no one's around, you're listening to this ridiculous music. And then when people show up, you're like, I have no idea why she's playing this.
She's like, you want to play country hits of 2015? I'm like, no, I don't, Alexa. And then I end up listening to it because she won't change it for me. We're getting way off topic. Okay, so what is the new book by Clayton Christensen, by the way?
Competing Against Luck.
Yes, okay.
Yeah.
So just FYI, everybody, newer book. So jobs to be done and what it's used for. So now we can go into the drill bits, who is Levitt, by the way, because this is Levitt's quote.
Yeah, Ted Levitt was a professor at Harvard, and in like 1960-something, like 1962, is when he said the famous quote, "People don't want to buy a 1/4-inch drill, they want a 1/4-inch hole." And that just gets to what we still continue to talk about, which is selling benefits and not features. Even though, and I'm guilty of this too, when you design a feature, you're just wanting to talk about feature.
Yeah. That mindset is really helpful. I heard a quote completely random and non-related, a non-product management podcast the other day. I can't even remember where it was, but it was a business podcast, and somebody was talking about the railroad industry, way back when, and they didn't get into airplanes and flights because they said, no, we're in the railroad industry. And the guy corrected the host. He said, no, they were in the moving people around industry. And I'm like, that's jobs to be done. People don't care that it's a train. They hire the train to get them to where they need to go. And that's kind of the same job that a plane does, just in a different,
so spot on,
not as effective way. It was it's jobs to be done.
I read something that was comparing this to lawnmowers and lawnmower companies, is that people buy lawnmowers to cut their grass when really what they want is short, beautiful green grass.
Huh?
And so if you would apply that, the lawnmower company would instead develop a grass that stays green and doesn't ever need to be cut.
Like my grass?
Yeah, turf, a.k.a. AstroTurf.
Yeah, it's great. I don't ever need to cut it.
Do you seriously have a turf yard?
Oh, yeah.
I have advocated for this for years,
It's great.
and I always get shut down.
Oh, it's great.
And definitely not ridiculously expensive.
Well, do you know, though, how much water we waste in Colorado? It's a high desert, and people are watering their lawns. I don't water that thing.
Yeah,
So.
and you're like, suckers!
I hired it to do a job, and it's doing it pretty damn well. So,
Look beautiful year-round.
all right. So, can you walk us through any specific scenario or scenarios where jobs to be done would be useful?
Yes, sure. So jobs to be done is most useful in a setting where you're trying to develop something new.
Okay.
And so, well, for example, you may have the job to be done right now of help me produce a quality podcast. Mm-hmm. Okay? And so then we can look
We
at...
could use help with that.
So if we were to want to design a new product around servicing that job, okay, there are 5 things we might want to look at or would look at, which is the progress that you want to make, the context that you're in, the obstacles that you're currently facing, the hacks that you're currently using to get that job done, and then how you might define quality.
He he memorized that. He has no notes. It's pretty impressive.
I wish there was a good Acronomicon for it, but unfortunately it's PCOHQ. So
yeah, that's a terrible acronym.
And it doesn't have an iguana in it. So we're just gonna sail. But so if the progress you're trying to make is help me deliver a quality podcast. Okay, so that's your progress. The context that you're in that we would want to know about is that you are, and many thousands of people are now, self-producing podcasts. Yeah. Okay, you're not in an official formal studio.
The studio is pretty nice.
It's pretty nice.
It's amazing. It is super impressive. And so that's your context. And then the obstacles that you probably come up against is if I were to try to design software around it, you have to find guests. You have to find people to come on. You want to prep them a little bit, send them an outline. You do the recording. You have to edit out all of Adam's swear words. And
it's a lot of work.
All of my mother swear words.
And then maybe when you upload it, you have to worry about compression and stuff that. Okay, so those are the obstacles that you come up against. What are you hacking together currently? You're using email, maybe you're using GarageBand to slice and dice things. So you're starting to, and who knows what all else. Maybe there's random foam just set up on a desk. I don't know. And so you're putting all these different things together. And finally, what would quality look like to you? Okay, is that, what would be great is if I could record the audio, or first of all, if I could like reach out to people and have some system that managed, here's my schedule.
Yeah.
Here are the people these are people who are appearing on other podcasts on these topics. Just different things to piece that together for you. You upload it, it edits super easily, and then distributes to all of the different places. So through those, like identifying those 5 things across, a dozen, 15 interviews with other podcast producers, you would start to be able to see there's enough energy here that people are willing to pay. There's a market.
Right.
There's a market for this, and it's worth us putting some effort into building it. Or, yes, people are all struggling with this, but not struggling enough.
Yeah.
That's like the core thing of like what Jobs tries to describe is how much struggle is there
Yep.
for it to actually be a job to be done.
So that was one of the things I remember most from your talk at Product Camp was you had that visual, which I can put in the show notes. I can put a blog link to that. But it was users have to struggle enough. What were the constraints? They have to struggle enough to make them make a change. Like, and I think you used the analogy of changing cell phone companies or something like that.
Yes, yeah. So that's the forces of progress diagram.
Yes.
It would be so great, yeah, to put that in the notes. But basically, the kind of algorithm for change in customer behavior is you have push plus pull. So those are the things up top. So imagine push is like something sucks and you hate it. Pull is something looks great and new. And then that's over anxiety and habit. And so anxiety is like, well, I may do that new thing or I could switch to that new thing, but then I have to learn it. And what if I suck at that? Or what if they're lying? And then habit is, well, I don't love what I'm currently doing, but I at least know how to do it.
Yeah.
And so push plus pull has to be greater than anxiety plus habit in order for a new behavior to happen.
This is why we're all using Jira at work. Don't you think so, Adam?
Habit?
It's habit, and there's just like, it's like our anxiety isn't quite high enough with it to pull us to...
My Lord, how not. Jira is the worst software product that has ever been.
We can go into a Jira rant at any time that anybody wishes. We have in previous episodes.
But the habit is probably so ingrained.
It's so ingrained, and it's like we know that it's just hacked together, and we know that they just kind of throw out features to try and solve individual problems, and it doesn't really go with the overarching flow of the software. But I mean, I think it's a good idea, or it's a good example of, like everybody hates it, but that anxiety just isn't quite high enough to make everybody go to rally, So
Yeah, I'm curious, like, how you would quantify. I mean, I know you've given like a formula here, but like, how much anxiety does it really have to produce for a change? And it's not just for Jira. I mean, how would someone know? Like,
when I changed from Android to iPhone.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
It was causing a lot of anxiety. Also, I wanted to be cool, so there was that. It's not fact.
And now look how cool you are.
Yeah, I know. I'm trying to think of another like example. Like Alexa is pissing me off so much, so maybe my anxiety is just about high enough to pull me into this Google Mini. I think it's there. I don't know.
You can just get both and be like, okay, one of you sell me on yourself. Be like, Alexa, sell me on why I should keep you, and then
She'll
see
be
what
like,
she
I
says.
don't understand.
And then Google will be like, well, let me tell you. And you'll be like, okay, Google.
And Google will call me by my name because they have like actual voice recognition.
And then they have your DNA because they bought 23andMe.
Yeah. Oh crap, they do have that too. Adam, what's like Shutterstock's biggest competitor? iStock Photo.
Getty, yeah.
Okay, or
iStock.
Getty.
It's the same.
So, do you ever have like users switch over to Shutterstock from like those competitors? Do you know?
I'm curious.
I know you're not a product manager, so you might not know this, but
Yeah, I mean, I don't know like numbers or percentages or anything like that, but I kind of wonder, like, a lot of people know Shutterstock. It's a multi-billion-dollar company, but a lot of people don't. And I think that like they've seen stuff from Shutterstock and they just don't make that association. That brand doesn't necessarily stick in their head.
yeah.
And I think it's actually the same thing for Getty. Like, people see a lot of iStock stuff and they won't necessarily know, oh, that's from iStock, even though it says iStock on the photo.
I would just be really curious to talk to your sales team or like product managers to know like how do they like what are the anxiety or the pain points that is going to make a user switch from like Getty to Shutterstock. It would be interesting to see.
I think one interesting thing to think about also is, and relating it back to the Milkshake example, that the Milkshake is not competing against other breakfast products, it's competing against a banana. Well, I guess a banana's somewhat of a breakfast product, but I think you get the meaning. And so I wonder if Shutterstock is competing against Getty, but you're also competing against royalty-free images.
Yeah.
Oh, good point.
And so I would be curious, like, I mean, as a freelancer, I have definitely purchased credits to stock photo services. But I've also used plenty of like Pexels. And so it'd be really interesting, I think, to find people who have just hired Shutterstock or people who have just fired it. Like people who purchased some credits, used them all, and didn't repurchase again 2 weeks. Or had a subscription, canceled the subscription. Why?
Not enough Red Panda photos, clearly.
Trust me, we found a lot of Red Panda photos, Kim.
I sent Adam like a list of like 30 Red Panda photos. I'm like, can I have these? And he's like, seriously? Then he thought they were all adorable. So you made a good point too when we were talking back and forth about jobs that like it's not that you necessarily have to innovate and build some fancy new technology that has never existed in the world. Sometimes it's just assembling various available technologies to do the job in an innovative way.
Yes. Yeah. So that was, and that's what I was kind of mentioning a second ago, that the hacks that people are currently using, when you have somebody who is using Microsoft Excel and Trello and a notepad and something else, then you may have a product on your hands. And so like a good example is like when Intuit released SnapTax, which was where you just take a picture of your taxes. It does all the OCR, does all the optical character recognition, reads everything for you, and submits your taxes. They did not invent the camera phone or the internet or taxes or OCR. They observed...
Acronomicon, what's OCR?
Ostrich.
Always an animal.
Ostrich.
What's wrong with that? I mean,
No, they're fine.
Okay, ostrich, creative rights.
Okay, that works.
Pretty
That's
good.
not what it is. What is
Also,
it?
is optical character recognition, which is where a computer is able to read typed words. And so they didn't invent any of those things. They observed people struggling. Shocker, people are struggling with their taxes. And they assembled these different technologies together. Or Airbnb, who didn't have to invent any of the things that are core to their business, including actual real estate.
Yeah.
They have assembled those things into a way that makes them like the largest hotel chain in the world.
Yeah, that is crazy to think about because I think working in technology, like I'm just constantly reading about, what Google's doing with AI and what Uber's doing with self-driving cars in Pittsburgh and like all this is just constant stream of just new technology and new discovery. But really, a lot of these companies that are these big tech giants, they're just assembling existing technology in a new way.
But I'm glad you bring up Airbnb because I've noticed that like they come up with like really great design and UX frameworks.
Yeah, they do.
And so like they're constantly making sure that they are the standard. Mm-hmm. And if you look at Airbnb and you like go through their website, you can see on like a lot of really clean even Shutterstock applies some of their design standards.
Yeah, sure.
And I think that there's just like that certain things and flows are successful, and you can see that like reflected across the web and a bunch of different websites. And so I think that like being able to innovate to that degree is what can help you be, as successful.
Innovate from like a design aspect, you're saying. Yeah.
But I mean, like they even have like technology frameworks and stuff like that. Really.
They just do what they do so well. Like now they have that experiences feature that they just launched, and it's like the same thing though. They don't own a tour company. They don't own. It's just allowing people to sell their.
They're classified as a hotel chain?
Well,
no.
but
If they were a hotel chain, the number of people who are staying at an Airbnb tonight is like 2 million. They would be the largest hotel chain. Actually, and it's kind of great what you're just mentioning about how we hold Airbnb up as this really high standard of design. Totally ties back to the thing of the MVP very early on. Have you seen the very first Airbnb page ever?
No.
It is a stinking pile.
I have seen
the
it.
Wayback Machine is what you should check out.
Yeah.
It is horrific. But they proved through that simple, terrible design, yes, there's a need here. And over time, they've iterated and iterated and iterated. And now they are just
the standard.
The standard. You're totally right.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking of like more, thinking about the push-pull again. I'm thinking about Craigslist, which is just still a stinking pile of crap and, hasn't, but people still use it because their habit, it's just a habit, right? And their anxiety with the terrible design of that website isn't high enough to make them use Facebook. What do they call it? What is
exactly
the Facebook feature that they sell things on? Or
I think
any other
Craigslist at this point is just trolling all of us. They're like, we've seen the non-solicited redesigns on Twitter. Thank you, and therefore just we're sticking with it.
Yeah. So let's talk about like product managers and how we can use jobs to be done more effectively. You mentioned context is more important than personas. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. And so that's something that gets a little bit of heat out there is because
we are so used to making personas as product managers. That's like part of our existence, and our identity is just, personas.
Right.
But I've read a lot when we were talking about this, and it seems like people are moving away from that a little bit.
Well, so the great thing about personas is that what it indicates is that the people who are designing software, developing software, and trying to prioritize what we ought to build are trying to relate to the human beings on the other side of it.
Yeah.
And that is fantastic. That's great. But when you kind of define those people by attributes instead of their motivations or their desires or their job to be done, what are they actually hiring your product for, then unintentionally there's a disconnect there.
Yeah.
And so I think that the way that PMs can use jobs to be done to make better decisions, to be better advocates for their users, is not to focus on the age, income, education, like whatever else a persona might be constructed of, and instead to know this is the context in which these users are using our application. This is where they're trying to go. And by having a deeper understanding of that, you can be a better advocate up the chain to those, higher ups who are insisting this is the thing you're going to build, this is the thing you're going to build. And you might have a better argument for, actually, I understand why that might be, why you might want to prioritize that. I would suggest that instead we do this thing because what we're observing, what we're hearing from our users is that this is where they're trying to get. This is the progress that they're trying to make.
It's interesting to think about this from a marketing standpoint, just because I work on we'll call it a big data marketing tool. And, I do a lot of competitive research for like, what is Facebook's advertising platform look like? What does, AdWords look like? And it's always when you're targeting people for a product, it's always by gender, by age, when really we should be targeting people by something bigger than that, like looking for their motivation somehow within their profile.
There's a big piece in jobs, if you start reading up on it, that's all about non-consumption. And so there's a large segment of your market that is currently not using an advertising network. And that is so rather than looking only at what your competitors are doing, what are the people who are not hiring any of us?
Yeah.
What are they hiring instead? Mm-hmm. What are they doing instead, and why? And is there a way that we can absorb that, design a solution around it, monetize it?
So this can kind of change the way that product managers do competitive research too.
Totally, yes, absolutely.
Instead of just looking at what all my competitors are doing, really just kind of going a lot deeper than that.
Right.
That's
Well,
awesome.
and not defining your competitors by the other people in your industry, but by what do the non-consumers hire instead.
Yeah. Oh,
So it's really just your competitor is anyone that is not you.
Well,
being used.
anyone that has that job to do.
There's definitely a sense where you can abstract it like too far. But no,
Like that example.
So Disney has talked about this for forever. That Disney World does not compete against Universal Studios. They compete against camping.
That's a great example.
And they compete against family nights at home.
Yeah.
And so it's just it's not saying anyone else ever that has offered a product is our competitor. It's what are the functional, social, and emotional jobs that people are hiring us to do, and what are the other alternatives out there, period, that people choose outside of our industry.
That's the take home, I think.
Good clarification.
Yeah. Couldn't have said it better myself, Adam. What about you?
Nope.
Adam, quick question. Do you prefer chocolate or caramel?
Let's see, chocolate or caramel?
See? Say caramel.
I say chocolate.
I tried to catch you off guard, but it didn't work.
No.
So this has been awesome. Is there any other last words or any other ideas that we should know about Brian for jobs?
I think we've covered it. No, I think we've covered it.
And I know that you did at Rocky Mountain Product Camp, you did like a mock interview for how to interview customers to kind of lead to find out the job that they're trying to get done. Is there a blog post that you have on your website or anything that we can
if you
link to?
if you go to hirebrianrhea.com and scroll to the bottom, actually there's like a little input where you can give me your email address, and I send you like 4 emails, and one of those includes the interview technique.
Highly recommended. I did it. I have those 4 emails. They're very, they're short and sweet, and they're enlightening, and they will give you like a really deeper understanding and just something to read through if you want to learn more about jobs. So definitely do that. And I'll put a link in the show notes. Adam, any last words?
Thank you for this topic, because actually I feel
really
like it was
useful.
I think it's a very exciting idea, and I think that it's sad that like a lot of people, and not sad, but like I think it's just, maybe the sad part is that people don't know about it enough, because I don't know how many like things I've seen about like, okay.
This is where I put the Falcon in, I think.
All I was trying to say is that I think that it deserves more exposure.
Yeah, I agree. I know.
And then you two just started mocking me. For trying to express a genuine idea.
For me, it was purely the Fireball.
Yep, that was it.
Fireball was a drink of choice tonight. Sorry you guys couldn't drink with us. All right, that's all we got. Thank you so much, Brian. This is a great topic. I was so excited to record this podcast today. Links are in the show notes. Check them out. And otherwise, we will see you next week. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to Product Popcorn. You can subscribe to the podcast or leave a review on iTunes, Google Play, or Stitcher. You can always read more at productpopcorn.com or follow us on Twitter at Product Popcorn.
By the way, I'm like super pumped about this episode because I feel like Jobs to Be Done is like all over the place.
I know it.
It's like becoming like a real topic, and I've had a lot of people ask me about it.
Okay, cool.
Sweet.
At least 2.
At least 2 people.